Jay Horwitz, late. This is an amazing conversation with Buck Showalter. Thank you for doing this, Buck.
Really? I mean, you must have a slow news day. I mean,
I do.
You're scuffling for guests, okay? Because I'm nervous.
Dick.
Because I know you're a tough interview.
I want to take it back to 2014. 4 women PR directors in baseball. Debbie Gallus of Oakland, Melanie Yount of the Cardinals, Shannon Ford of the Mets, Monica Bartle of the Orioles, breast cancer. Monica died 8 years ago. Shannon followed the next year. Shannon used to tell me how kind you were to Monica. I got to be really friendly with her through the years. And even before I knew you, about you take care of the little people. And I always felt like the PR people were little people. And after she passed, they wore shirts in spring training, went up to the funeral. I mean, how did you get along with Monica the last part of her life when she was sick,
Well, when I first got there, you go in and you're trying to bring certain things that, every situation's different, and you say, okay, what's needed? What do I need to bring if I can? Yeah. And Monica I used to kid her, call her the Iron Maiden. She was tough, man. She had a real toughness about her, not in a bad way. But we were sparring around, seeing how the relationship was going to go. We had a moment where a player had been hurt and was kind of shirking his, not duty, but something he needed to talk with the media. And he was going to slip out the back there, and she said something about it. And I said, no, he's going to talk to the media. He can come in my office and do it. And I got him, brought him in there. I said, no, you're going to do this. You haven't been here for 2 months. And I'll never forget, we got through, and she'd had trouble with this player. And she says, you and I are going to get along just fine.
Shannon was a lot like her, same way. But Shannon, they talked in the year between Shannon was alive. She used to send me how much she appreciated what you did, and I'm still friendly with Ben Barlow. And he told me you invited the family to a playoff game to do that.
Well, regardless, it's the old expression, do the right thing.
Yeah.
Our ownership allowed us. We left after a game, and they set up the memorial for her, and we flew up there on a plane that he chartered, and everybody. It was such an easy for Monica get on the plane. We have certain memories in our life of what we were doing when we heard that something had happened, and I still remember the moment when I knew that Monica had passed, and I think about her every. My wife and I were talking the other day that today was the anniversary of her passing.
Well, tomorrow's 70 years for Shannon. Tomorrow. Talk about another good friend of ours, R.A. Dickey. He was on the Hall of Fame ballot. R.A. and I were pretty close, wrote the book and everything. He said, I wouldn't have had a career without Buck. If Buck didn't stick with me.
Maybe I wouldn't have if it wasn't for him.
No, he
every
said,
once in a while you got to be right.
He said it was like a 4 home run inning, 4 or 5 wild pitches. He was learning the knuckleball at that time, right?
Well, you look for certain things with knuckleball guys over the years from experience. They got to be athletic. They've got to have, a tough will and no ego, and just want to get people out. But one, he had a pretty good knuckleball, but he had the makeup for it. He had everything if he could just grasp the knuckleball. And guys with his makeup, I don't know whether he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Who knows? That's somebody else, whatever.
Just to be out of battle where he
whatever the criteria is nowadays, good gosh, you explain that to me. But he's a Hall of Fame person.
Yeah.
He got it. And this is a guy that, they discovered that he didn't have a ligament, and his bonus got cut.
He lost all of his bonus, probably.
Yeah, but not once does R.A. not, feel honored and lucky. He got it. He got it, and it was easy to get him, and you pull for him. You got so many guys that that have great presence and inner toughness and are good people, and sometimes you can want them to do well too bad, but there's nothing tougher. We got a guy here in camp now that I know he's got everything, but he just doesn't have the stuff. And I know R.A., if he could figure out the knuckleball, he had the perfect disposition to throw it.
2012 Cy Young, 20 wins. Led the league in strikeouts.
Well, it's like, and your mother would make you go get switches to beat your own butt with. I'm looking out there a few years later, and RA's beating our butt.
Yeah. But he didn't forget. The first thing he said was, I wouldn't be anywhere without Buck, and I just didn't.
Well, it was easy. Fighting the fight for a guy like R.A. Dickey is pretty easy for a manager.
Yeah. I do the alumni now. I used to be the PR guy for a long time. And in my little time around you, I really appreciate you make these guys feel welcome. And it wasn't always the case, Buck, to be honest with you. Like from Ed Kranepool to Shamsky to Storbury to Gooden, they feel welcome here, which is good. We're going to keep tradition going. I mean, you did it with the Yankees, right?
We're not taking any backseat to the Yankees. We got a rich history with good players.
But you did it. You started it with the Yankee stuff, right?
Yeah, but I did. It was just part of the deal. I first started with the Yankees. We kind of made some judgments on some players who would go out there and I used to ask them to come out and watch it and support them, and we had a couple of guys that thought it was beneath them to respectfully support the alumni old timers game. Well, they didn't stay around too long. We kind of moved them along. But I want our guys to understand the history and the things that are important to our fans and people that have come before us and paved the way and done things, and respect how the game has evolved. But in a lot of ways stayed the same.
I remember last year, our Shamsky told me, made me feel well. Come to the cage, and we had what we call around here before a no-fly zone, and that people were circling around, and we're bringing a lot of guys back this year who were in no-fly zone.
There's it's like Keith last year, and now we got Johnny Franco back. I've been dying to get him back, and our ownership's helped us with that, and. Straw's here. We got David Wright, of course, and Hojo's going in the Hall of Fame, I believe, this year. And, it's just fun having these guys around, but it's not like there's a celebrity guy that signs autographs. They have something to impart, and shame on us if we don't take advantage of it. We'll take them as much. Al Leiter, anybody wants to have some fun, sit on the bench with Al Leiter and John Franco for 9 innings in a spring training game. You think it's the 7th game of the World Series. I love their energy and their passion and their sincere love of the Mets.
For whatever reason, Johnny was, 17 years in the Mets. My favorite stat, he played Santa Claus 14 straight years at the Christmas party.
Well, we had Nimmo as an elf.
He didn't get traded, though. Nimmo didn't get traded. Frank,
well, we were able to bring him back.
He feels, again, he was afraid to walk around the stadium. And now all these guys, feel welcome and everything.
No, I think, without whatever went on in the past, that's everybody's business. There's usually good reasons, and you find out why. But, this is a new beginning for all of us, and not saying it's a new approach, not saying it's just what we feel like is right, and we're going to make their path easier. It's kind of like young players. Why would you haze them? They're wearing our uniform. Let's make their path easier. But we're very proud of our past here with the Mets. And
so it's being an alumni. I appreciate it.
Well, it's easy. That's the hardest thing. I enjoy those guys because a lot of them I played against. I played against Hojo. I managed Al Leiter. I saw him at 19 and throwing it to the backstop Moniana in New York. And a lot of these guys, Straw took the best batting practice I ever saw when we signed him with the Yankees, and he met us in Tiger Stadium. Yeah. Mattingly told me, he said, don't ever put me in his hitting group again.
Really?
Oh, my gosh. I was kidding with him today. He was talking about how the wind was blowing in or something. I go, Straw, the wind didn't matter with you. Come on. He goes, yeah, you're right.
I have a new part-time job starting next week. I'm going to be the PR guy for Team Israel.
Dude, I've been trying to manage the club, helping Ken's is coming.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. So you called him up, right? The first, the manager of Team Israel, Ian Kid. So we have Brad Asmus, Kevin Euclid, Jerry Naron.
They don't need any help. They got a good group.
Our best Israeli player is Ty Kelly, by the way.
Yeah, I had Ty, but if you guys could get everybody to play that should be playing. Yeah. That's the team.
A lot of guys didn't want to come.
If I told Ian, if you got me going earlier, we can fix that, okay?
What do you remember? He had a great career, 30-30 guy. Yeah.
Oh, I remember Ian was a shortstop out of University of Missouri, if I remember right, and he came over as a JIC. That's a just-in-case player, in case somebody's got to go in a game. And I kept looking at these numbers. It was interesting how he read, and I kind of liked the profile of him, what some people talked about, how he played the game. And so I brought him over and watched him play shortstop, and he had everything about what you look for in a big league player, the intangibles. He had it, but he didn't profile as a shortstop. And I remember we talked about, does anybody ever talk about maybe putting him on the other? We talked about third, and so let's try him at second base, and everything took off. The game slowed down for him, and he was a baseball player.
Now he works for the Rangers now as the assistant GM.
He's a good one. He's passionate, and I got to know his dad. His dad was, I believe, a prison warden in Tucson.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
going to tell you something. I met his dad one day in spring training early on. He said, you got any problems with Ian, you let me know. He put the fear of the Lord in him. He had a certain toughness about him. Ian had that same toughness.
We have another mutual friend, Bill Parcells.
Oh,
Diehard Giant fan. You were together in when he was with the Cowboys. You got to know him, and you used to see him a lot in Jupiter. And he's a big, gigantic.
I'm hoping he comes out. He usually comes out a couple of times in the spring. It's always a highlight.
He's here. I mean, I know he's in Jupiter, but he could tell you the roster of the 1954 Giants.
Yeah, he used to remind me. He big baseball fan. One of the highlights of my managerial career was having him and Bobby Knight and I think it was
Havlicek, no?
No, Nelson, the basketball coach for the Mavericks.
Yeah.
We're all in my office.
I thought Havlicek was around here too in a whole...
He may have been, but I would have known.
But
they're in my office and it's like 45 minutes for a game and they start talking. I do pride myself on going, shut up, watch and listen.
Yeah.
And watching those three guys go at each other, it was priceless. Yeah. I mean, it was vicious, but it was funny.
Yeah, Bill. I'm sure he'll start for us this spring because he always talked about you too.
Well, I get a little text from him every once in a while, sometime during the season, and his timing is always immaculate. That he knows the right words to say in short texts, and he's been to consider him an acquaintance.
Yeah,
he's impacted a lot of lives.
Did you connect in New York when you were the Yankees?
Yeah, I got a chance to. That kind of fraternity of New York coaches, but I always loved the way he went about his business and the way he handled himself.
I've been with the Mets a long time, 43 years. I think I worked with 14 managers. Joe Torre was my first manager.
No kidding, where?
With the Mets, 1980. He always says I got him fired. 14 managers. I just
you know what gets managers fired? Bad teams.
I got, 14 years, but I just, to me, have a lot in common with Terry and Bobby V. Deflecting from the players. I mean, when something goes wrong, you have a way of navigating away from putting it on you. I mean, Terry was great at that. Bobby V was great, and Joe was great at that too. Was there any one guy you picked up from?
I try to be real careful about that to leave somebody out. I've been fortunate to be around some really good baseball men. From Billy Martin to, but I also learned a lot of things from people about what not to do. We sometimes say, well, there's a better way to handle that situation without naming names. I tell you, if I had to name a guy I played for, Johnny Oates, in AA and AAA, he was very impactful with the way it was very intense, very competitive, but it was about the human being as much as it was just the tools of the player in the game. Johnny got it because he was kind of a catcher that played sparingly, but Johnny really impacted the way I looked at handling people as much as players.
Did you go to Montreal much at all as a manager?
Montreal, yeah.
My first road trip, Joe took me to a Thai club, which is a store.
What kind of club?
A Thai store. I was on St.
There's a few other clubs in Montreal. I was hoping you didn't go.
It's a good library. Shea Paris got a lot of good books.
I don't know anything about it. I never went there, honestly. So probably why I've been married 40 years on Sunday.
It's a library. So he took me to...
people were going to check this out.
He took me to a Thai shop, the 70 ugliest Thai. I still have one. Joe was so good to me. Last question. You live in big college football fan, Alabama?
Yeah, I went to Mississippi State. I grew up, in the South. Everybody wanted to play football in the Southeastern Conference, and right. I thought I was going to Alabama. Back then they had freshman football. Right. The freshman football coach was also the baseball coach, Hayden Riley, and I'll never forget when I went up on a recruiting trip meeting Coach Bryant. It's kind of carried over. It's tough when Mississippi State plays Alabama, but my memory is my dad used to get me up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We would drive to Tuscaloosa, and we'd park a mile away because we didn't want to pay parking, and he had a friend with Pinkerton Security, and the only seats available were with the faculty section. They didn't come to games on the 35, 40-yard line, so he would let us in right for game time, and he would make me watch the sideline and watch the way Coach Bryant and the way the coaches with the defensive schemes and the way that they would dissect what was going on in the field and the timing of the pass patterns where the ball was in the air before you'd catch it. He made me watch the game within the game, and my dad played college football, and before he had to go serve his country, he and his two brothers joined up, but he was on his path to play some professional football. But he liked the way Coach Bryant and his staff conducted themselves.
I appreciate your time. Just so you know, too, what you did with Monica impacted a lot of people.
Well, she impacted my life a lot more than I did hers, but she, it was a loss, but it was heaven's gain. I'm telling you, her parents.
It says a lot about you. You would care about the smaller people. That's not the right word, but
it's easy. We all take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
None of us are getting out of this alive.
Yeah.
And I like when somebody says, "Do you have time?" None of us are that busy. We try to act like we're so busy. Please.
Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Best of luck. Appreciate it.
God bless.